I would like to welcome you here to the Union County Republican Women's meeting, so we can talk and we can listen to our legislators that are going to give us an update from what they've been hearing, or been discussing, or whatever they're doing. Okay, so first we're going to start. I would like to welcome any veterans. If you're a veteran, if you'll please stand, I'd like to recognize you. Veterans? Yes. Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, I'll talk louder. If you're a veteran, if you'll please stand. We'd like to recognize you and thank you for your service. Next, we're going to ask Ms. Gina Vale if she will come lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So you'll all stand, please.
Attention, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And please remain standing as Mr. Robert Vale comes in and leads us in prayer.
Lord, thank you for this beautiful day you've made for us. We thank you for your love and your protection and the way you provide for everything that we need. We thank you for all these folks that are present tonight at this meeting, and we ask your blessings. Lord, we ask that you guide and lead each one of these members of our government, and that they would do the things and operate in a way that would be pleasing to you and that would advance your will in our nation. And so we just thank you that we can, for our freedoms we have here, that you've given us, and we just thank you for all these things in your precious Son Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you. You may be seated. We're going to have a short business meeting before we get started with our legislative update. So I'm going to call the meeting to order, and first item on the agenda is approving monies from we have a UCRW campaign headquarters checking account. We need to move that money because we're through campaigning, and we need to move the monies that are there to the regular Union County Republican Women's checking account. Then we will close the campaign headquarters checking account. So do I have a motion for this to happen?
I make the motion.
Okay, a motion by Ms. Gina. Is there any discussion? Any questions? Okay, do I have a second? Second by Ms. Sheila Childers. Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. Thank you. Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Thank you. I would like to give an update on our scheduled monthly meetings and activities that we have for the remaining of this year. On May 19th, we will have the Homeland Security updates. And this meeting will be held in the Chancery Building, right behind us in the Chancery Courtroom. This will be a great time. We have two speakers, Rebecca Cheney and James Brinson, who will be coming and speaking about Homeland Security updates. And on June 23rd, we're going to have a First Choice Pregnancy Center representative come. This is a great time, and it's a great for us to help minister or support this group. With that, let me add, I have... This can be for members or non-members. These are the baby bottles that, in fact, we've collected these at our church. We've taken these at our church, and most of y'all are familiar with these. This is the baby's bottle for God's gift. On the back, the verse James 1:17, every good and perfect gift comes from above. So what you'll do is, if you will take this bottle, you can take the bottle, as long as you commit to fill it up, whether it be a check for, $100, $10, whatever the Lord leads you, place it here, or coins. When my children were little, that's what they did. They took these bottles, and as they did their chores and they got their change, they filled these bottles up. Of course, I had two boys that were racing to see who's going to fill theirs up the quickest, so that was great. But I'm asking if you will take this and then bring these bottles back. You can give them to a Union County Republican Women's group, one of the ladies, or you can bring it to me, to my office at the Chancery Building on Mother's Day. So we're going to collect these and give it back to the pregnancy center. So we have plenty of these. I think we have either 40 or 50, so I'm hoping 40 or 50 people here will take these and contribute. Next, in July, we will have no meetings. We're taking that month off. August 25th, we're going to be planning the First Responders Dinner, which has been great. It was a great turnout, great success last year. We had the dinner for all the first responders, and we have it held at Hillcrest, and we'll probably be doing that again this year at the same place. In September, on September 17th, that's Constitution Day. We're going to make the eighth graders aware of Constitution Day because a lot of them don't even know what it means. Some of them sadly don't even know what the Constitution is or what it's about. So we're hoping that for the eighth graders, we're going to be able to share this with them. On October 27th, we're going to have someone here at our meeting to talk about gun safety. We haven't locked in that person's name yet, but we will be having that meeting concerning that. In November, we're going to be serving dinner for the veterans. This will be a great time for us to reach out to them. I'm sharing this with you, not just Republican women, but anyone who would like to help serve, help do that, or participate would be wonderful. And in December, it's Christmas time, so we're going to have a Christmas party. So that's all I have for our announcements. Does anyone have anything else they would like to add to what I said?
Just a reminder, we have shut sale, we want it released tonight.
Yes, Miss Nancy, also known as Miss, we'll call you Van White here. We have plenty of prompt material we would love for y'all to purchase. It's going at a great price. You know, if you don't like the price, make us an offer. We will let you have that price. But we have t-shirts, caps, bracelets, pins, buttons, flags, you name it. And we would love for all of this to be gone because we don't want to keep this in the boxes, okay? Anything else? Yes, ma'am. November 11th. Anyone else want to share? Yes, ma'am.
If you're not a member of this club, can you still do the bottom thing?
Absolutely. This is not limited to the bottom. $8 are not limited to the club. Like as I said, several churches have done these, and this is just a great opportunity to help with the Credit's First Choice. If you're not familiar with First Choice, come to the meeting on June 23rd and hear more about it. I can share with you some about it too, and there's someone here in the room that can share with you about it. It's a great ministry. Anyone else? Very quiet, ma'am. Well, now we will begin with our legislators. If they would come over one at a time, we have Representative Sam Creekmore, Representative Steve Massengill, Senator Kathy Chism, and Senator Nell Wheeler. Senator Nell Whaley. So we'll begin. This is true. So we'll begin with the representatives, and we'll just do it in alphabetical order. So, Mr. Creekmore, if you'll come forward. So please make it feel welcome.
Thank you. Well, this is my second session to be chair of public health, and that took up a lot of my space and time. And I'll just give you an update, kind of where we are in the state of Mississippi. And it's not.
We can't hear you.
I'll give you an update as to where we are health-wise in the state of Mississippi. And it's not a pretty sight. We're number one in heart disease. We have more deaths than we do births. We're number 48 in obesity, 50 in infant mortality, which I'm glad y'all are taking up money for the children. 45th overall in maternal mortality, 49th in hypertension, 48th in diabetes. So we got a long way to go in Mississippi. And so we took up a lot of bills. We had 175 bills come through public health. And I'm going to give you some of the highlights of what we were able to accomplish. We created the Mississippi Public Health Trust Fund, and that was really the Board of Public Health in the state of Mississippi really wanted this fund where they can start collecting donations from the private sector and then apply that money to areas where we need. And so that was able to be passed. We licensed music therapists for the first time. That bill has come up many, many years. We're able to create the licensed therapy with the intent of that saving people money and saving the state money, because that is a way you can receive therapy without having to purchase drugs. A big one, the Attorney General had sued many of the opioid companies years back, and we started receiving revenue from that. The state of Mississippi collected $207 million to this point. And so we created the Opioid Settlement Advisory Council. And the way the lawsuit was set up, 70% of that money goes to the legislature, and this council will determine where that money goes, how it's spent. 15% goes to cities and counties who are part of that lawsuit, and some of that money's been delivered. And then 15% goes to government, which, we put in the bill that It didn't stipulate where, so that money can be spent anywhere. We did require in this bill that government money, that 15%, would go toward the opioid abatement in the state of Mississippi. So that was a big bill, and hopefully we'll start seeing results soon from that money and make the difference. We created the Domestic Violence Fatality Review Team. This has been done in other states. That's, abuse in marriages has been going on for a long time. It's a serious issue in the state of Mississippi. So we created this review team to help us look for trends, establish where we can identify issues in the state of Mississippi and marriages. And so this was a big deal for us to get this passed. And hopefully we'll be able to have a better understanding of how these things happen and what we can do to prevent it. As y'all know, I've been in the mental health space for 4 years now. We've made tremendous progress. Our jail time's been cut in half over the last 18 months. Our commitment process has increased in efficiency. And we tweaked that in House Bill 1404, where we did away with, by the time you're in an acute psychiatric care hospital, you've been reevaluated twice. And before you can be moved, as part of the process, there was another evaluation, which is not necessary. So we were able to do away with that evaluation, cutting red tape for families and professionals in psychiatric care. We also, in House Bill 1401, created the Community Health Worker Certification. This will help people, help our patients receive insurance money quicker, and will help our public health workers. And then one that we passed the House and Senate for the first time in the history of the state of Mississippi was COE reform. Unfortunately, the governor vetoed the bill last week. I called his office and asked if he could put it in the call for special session. They thought they could. There's just one part of this multi-part bill that he didn't like. Senator Brown and I have agreed to take that part out if they'll bring it up in special session. So I think we'll get that passed, and that'll be really good for especially our rural hospitals, and doubling the capital expenditures that they can spend without having to get a certificate of need. And again, back to mental health, this was a big one. We created a pilot program for the Certified Community Behavioral Health Clinic, CCBHCs. And our goal is for all the community mental health centers to receive this designation by 2030. But this requires community mental health centers to be able 24/7 and take care of substance abuse patients as well. So that's a lot of the things we accomplished. There were some we got close. The Dr. Longtown has been very gracious and very helpful to me and the legislature, and she helped draft some language on no patient left alone for hospitals. We were able to get that through the House, but it failed in the Senate, and not throwing shade in the Senate by any means. And these things take time, but I'm committed to doing that again if you'll help me. And then another one was mental health first aid for first responders. That has been very successful in our state. Again, we got that through the House. It got caught up in some political mess, so we'll get that one done. And that was really good chance to get through. I'm going to continue to work on CON, even with special session. We're going to do some more next year. And then infant mortality is a very serious issue. We're going to hold some hearings this fall and see what we can do in the state of Mississippi to make that better. And continue to work on the opioid situation in the state of Mississippi. This money is going to really help. And that's it from my perspective in public health. Thank you.
You entertain questions, Dan?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, we're going to open it up for questions. I'm ready to speak on my.
I have one question. Of course, this is a health question in essence. Medicaid expansion came up. And in all fairness, you did not make any promises about it prior to a couple of other people did. But you voted for Medicaid expansion.
I did.
And this is one of the Obama administration's programs, one they set out where people can get Medicaid, even if they're not old enough, what the age is now, and at any age. And even when you don't work, you can sit home and do it. Now, I know that the House bill, Senate bill didn't, but the House bill said, well, it has a work requirement. I did a little research on that. Now, I understand that the Democratic administration would not allow that. They require that you allow anyone on it that qualifies without a work requirement. If that comes up again, Medicaid expansion comes up again, will you vote for it or will you vote against it?
Well, ever since I ran for office, I've been for Medicaid expansion. We've left $1 billion a year on the table, and we've had hospitals and patients who really need this money. And we take money for education and for roads and bridges, and we're we're the most unhealthy state.
Can I follow that up with that?
Yes.
One thing about Medicaid expansion, of course, I know they say, well, the state only has about 10%, and the federal government puts up 90%. You know that once they get everybody on it, because there are significant holdouts, particularly in the South and among the more conservative states, when they finally get all of them on there, they're going to, in state, this probably throw this into the lap of the states, and it's going to be an incredible increase in taxes when they're required to get it.
Yeah.
And you know, when another Democratic administration gets in place, they're going to require it to be done without a work requirement. And once they get on it, you can't get them off. That's one thing about government programs that never end. It seems like, although not some if they may do that.
Yeah. I don't think we brought a House bill for Medicaid expansion out this year. Our position was to wait until.
Not this year, it came out before.
Yeah, 2 years ago. Yeah. So we didn't have one this year, and our position was to wait and see what the federal guidelines are before we move any further on Medicaid expansion. So then that'll be the same for next year. I know no bills right now for Medicaid expansion.
Any other questions? You said you voted for Medicaid expansion.
I did.
Why?
Well, again, with the 10% that the state was responsible for was not being paid by the state of Mississippi, and it was being paid by the hospital association or the existing bed tax, I believe. Again, that was 2 years ago. So it's a $1 billion increase in healthcare system in the state of Mississippi at no charge to the taxpayers. That was my reasoning.
You know, I'm gonna stand up. I got a loud enough mouth, everybody can hear me. You know, if we have Medicaid expansion, number one, it's not going to be many years the federal government is going to cut out that money. Mississippi cannot afford Medicaid expansion. Number two, if we have Medicaid expansion, you can just kiss DeSoto County goodbye, because everybody living in Whitehaven and in southern Tennessee is going to move to Mississippi for Medicaid expansion, and we just cannot afford that. So y'all need to be looking to the future, because it's coming up again, and not support it.
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate your position.
Anyone else have anything to say or a question? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Here goes.
You want to say something?
No, I want to say welcome you.
Thank y'all. Well, this is my second year as chairman of transportation. Luckily, we don't have 175 bills coming to transportation in here. Thank God. I think we had about 30, and about probably 15 of them was naming highways. So luckily, it's not as much drama or hard times as it is going through 175 bills. I can't even imagine. We did name a few roads and worked on some other good stuff. I'm gonna tell y'all, Highway 30 is going to start in the next few weeks being overlaid, going to be a mill and overlaid from Cherry Boulevard all the way to Lafayette County line. So if anybody that drives to Oxford ought to be happy. And just so you know, that is an $8.1 million project. So, you know, unfortunately, nothing comes cheap in the world of transportation. So we did that. That'll be starting hopefully it won't be too hard on us while they're doing that. I know, you know, everybody gets mad when there's progress, but you gotta have a little pain to get the progress. So hopefully everybody will make it through it. Does anybody in here like a roundabout? Anybody? Okay. Well, I got a few people. I don't think we have any in Union County yet. I don't think. I do have one in Benton County. It is up on Highway 72. They call it a high-speed roundabout. I was very skeptical of this when it was being built. But numbers don't lie. So I'm going to give you the numbers on this, and I have come around to the roundabouts. So in 10 years prior to the roundabout at that intersection, there had been 86 major crashes. When I say major, that is injuries, deaths, or total of vehicles. So that was over 10 years of 86. And the years since then, there have been 5 minor crashes. They sent me a picture of one yesterday. Somebody had bumped somebody in the rear end. We went out last year and watched, took part of my video, and we watched it for about 30 minutes. The trucks and everything working their way through it. I was very amazed and very pleased to see how it worked. You know, you go to Oxford and they have plenty of roundabouts. My mayor friend down there, they call it roundabout Robert because there's roundabout everywhere. So I'm beginning to see how good that could be. So that's just a little bit on the transportation world. This is a Mississippi Department of Transportation. It's a 3-year plan, and they go through and pick out roads. They have a grading system. So for the next 3 years, this is sort of what they go by. They don't go do a road just because we asked. Because I had been on hard about Highway 30 out there. It sort of got pushed back a year because of funds, and but now luckily they're finally going to get it started. So that's pretty much our transportation year. It's been pretty light, pretty easy. We'll talk a little bit about House Bill 1. Probably most people have heard about that. I see Daniel Sparks slipped in over here in the back. He played a part in this, and he is much more up to date on a little bit of it than I am. There's actually 4 parts to this bill. There's a Tier 5 plan for retirees. And I see people shaking their head. Daniel's definitely the expert on this, way more than I am. So if you have questions on that, I'm going to let him answer those. Just a little bit about it, though. If you're in the system or if you're already retired, I'm going to say this: my mama, my daddy, my sister, my wife, my daughter, my niece, my mother-in-law are either retired or working towards it. So I'm not going to do anything bad on that. I mean, I go to dinner with them. I sleep with my wife every night when I'm home. So I'm not going to vote on something that would hurt that plan. So just so you know, if you're in the retirement, you're going to keep getting your checks. So you can feel a little easier about that. I know Daniel can answer any more in-depth questions than I can. So that was one part of it. Second part is MDOT. So there was a 9 cents, and this is over 3 years, tax increase on fuel. So in 1987 was the last time we had a tax increase on fuel. So 38 years, nobody likes tax increases, but everybody likes good roads and roundabouts. Both of those cost a lot of money. So that is the deal with that. 9 cents would generate about, let's see, what was my number? $213 million. MDOT had told us originally they needed about an additional $500 million. So we didn't even get half of what we needed, but we'll make that. Presently, we get $80 million a year out of our lottery fund, and that expires in 3 years if we don't get to extend that out, which I hope we do, because all that money goes to local projects. I know Ripley had one a few years ago. I think this year there's 39 projects across the state being done with that $80 million. So hopefully we can extend that and we won't lose that $80 million. So that is the second part of it. The third part is the income tax. So it's going July 1st this year, we at 4%. So over the next 4 years, it'll drop a quarter each year down to 3, and after that, it'll drop 0.3 for the next 10 years till it is completely gone. Now, it's 14 years, that's a long time. But it's $2.1 billion of our budget. Our budget's right at 7. So it is a big chunk of our budget, and we're only making up with that on growth. So we're taking a chance on that. So, and also in July 1st this year, grocery tax will go from 7 cents to 5. So, and that is $127.5 million cut right there. So you're cutting 2.2 billion or 2.225 billion, and you're raising the fuel tax about 237 or 213. So you're netting a $2 billion tax cut. And the thing about the road tax, that is a use tax. So you only use that when you use the roads. When you buy fuel, you pay that tax. Trucks, cars, anything coming through our state, they get to pay on that too. So that is a very fair tax. We had every statewide elected official, which are all Republicans, all endorse this. So evidently it was a pretty good plan. I know Daniel done a lot of work, Neil on the Senate, and everything come out good. So hopefully, I know my son, he works at Toyota, he has a good job. So he pays his taxes all year. He told me the other day he had to write a $1,700 state income tax check that he owed. So, you know, I know it don't help a lot of the older folks. Probably not gonna help me much either. I'm getting there. But if you make money, you still pay. I know my dad said the other day, he said, I sold cows this year, I had to pay income tax on the state. So, you know, we all want our kids to have better. So I think this will be better for our kids and our grandkids. I'm going to get a granddaughter in about a month. Very excited about that. So I hope when she gets, you know, by the time she gets there, it'll be gone. So hopefully it'll be good for everybody. I'll take questions. Yes, sir.
You might know it. My voice does not tell you, and that's why I like to use it. I'll ask you the same question that I did Senator Creekmore, Representative Creekmore. You know, you voted for Medicaid expansion last time, and it mentioned that there was a worker plan, which I'm satisfied will not work and it don't break the administration. If the Medicaid expansion comes up again, will you vote for or against it?
Well, we're waiting on Trump now, and we do have a Republican in the office. Hopefully, when he leaves, we'll have another one. And if he requires a work thing, we will do that. But if he don't, we won't. Well, if he don't, it won't come up for us because we're waiting on him. And I'm glad you have to go back 2 years to ask a question, other than ask something about what we did this year. So,
Well, I mean, I'd like to know if you're going to repeat what you did last time.
but if Trump gives us an okay on it, yes, I will.
I have a question. Speaking of Highway 30,
Yes, ma'am.
it's really, really, really bad.
It's awful.
Terrible. So are y'all gonna like just do it? Yeah, are you gonna scrape the whole thing up and make good?
They aren't. They're actually going to go to the worst spots. You know, there'll be some like sunken places now. They're going to fix those. Then they will do a mill and overlay. They'll grind it up, come back and overlay. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well then, that's one of your meal.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Your state thinking, what is involved with employees using for private and personal use?
Well, I think they can drive them home, but other than that, I don't think they're supposed to.
Thank you.
Yeah. As far as I know.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Steve, I'm just curious about a roundabout. Are y'all thinking about a roundabout around New Albany somewhere?
I haven't heard of any, but you know, that don't mean they would tell me. The one was on 72, and I didn't even know it. They'd already started before I knew it. So.
Second question. There's a sign on the highway that trucks are not supposed to exit the hospital exit.
Okay.
18-wheelers. There's 30 or 40 that go out and in there every day. For years, there was a tree in front of the signs. You couldn't even read it. And our city officials did get the tree cut down, thanks parks. But is there any way you guys could put like a light around that flashes to get these trucks? Because those trucks are about one truck's about 4 cars, and that
Yes.
Highway 30 exit, is a mess. And if we can eliminate the trucks, all they got to do is go down the next exit. If they don't help, if they're through trucks, and maybe give out a few citations, just not just a warning. But
I'll call our engineer over at Tupelo and check on that. I mean, I would think we could do that.
I mean, the signs there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think any truck pays.
Well, and their defense, they listen to that GPS, and if it takes them that way, they sort of get that.
If a couple of them get a ticket, I guarantee they'll get on that CB and they won't be going there. But anyway,
Yes.
So it's just a matter, and that would really help that intersection. It would eliminate about 200 cars a day.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yes.
In case you don't know, my name is Mark Whiteside. I'm fire chief here, but I'm also the president of the Mississippi Firefighter Association. So I represent all the firefighters in the state. When you mention Tier 5 retirement, I get, I can't tell you how many telephone calls about that. And one of the biggest concerns is 35 years. 35 years to ride a fire truck and be a firefighter is a long time on the body. Not to mention the mental and emotional side of it. But it seems like the biggest and number one concern I hear is that 35 years is so long. I can remember when it was 25, and then it went to 30 and down 35, but that is a long, long time for these guys. And one thing was it's going to more like a 401 based program. And before, if you were in the Mississippi intern, you couldn't take your retirement with you if you left the state. So that was kind of a way for us to keep our retention, because once we got 15 years or so for a firefighter, they weren't going to just quit us and go to another state. But if they can take this retirement with them now, wherever they go, then that's going to affect our retention. So, but our biggest concern, it sounds like from the feedback I get, is 35 years is so long for these guys to ride a fire truck. And the same way with a police officer sitting on in a police car. Bigger cities, even worse, because they have more call volume. But on the other side of that is they have a lot more positions for an older person to move up into where they're not actually riding a fire truck. But you get in your smaller cities, Tupelo on down those sides, they may be a captain on a fire truck their entire time. And it seems like I see a lot of need placements in guys when they're getting closer to their 20 and 25 years, 30 years. So it's only going to get worse. But that's our concern.
What about the UTV tags? Why did that get?
I'll let Daniel answer that just in a second. That's okay.
The
Yes.
UTV tags. Why does Mississippi not?
Well, the insurance companies is a big problem. They do not want those signs on the roads.
Why do other states? I mean, you got Tennessee.
I can hear the question.
I'm sorry. His question's about side by sides being on the roads and getting them tagged. Presently, we do not tag them. I had a couple of wheels this year, and we couldn't get them back.
I mean, I understand. Not everybody's going to tag.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a requirement.
Yeah.
That's not what they're wanting. But just like when you go out of state to ride, like in Arizona or Utah, wherever, you got to have a tag.
Yeah.
In Mississippi, you can't get one.
I promise you, I'm gonna keep working on that. The insurance this year.
Why let the special interest insurance groups rule our legislature?
Well,
Hospital
It
association.
passed the Senate.
it did.
And it died in your
It
committee.
did die, Mike. We brought it up,
The
and
question is why.
I let it go to a vote, and it died.
So in other words, the insurance companies are influencing your committee.
Well, they influenced that one.
That's what's happening to a lot of stuff in Jackson.
I mean,
A lot.
Now,
You know,
I've
they're-
said on for having influence.
even if we pass it, and if they want to write insurance on it, they'll just charge you.
That's what I'm saying.
whatever.
But somebody doesn't want to ride it on the road, they don't have to pay as much
That's right.
insurance.
That's right.
If it's not tagged, you don't pay as much insurance.
Well-
Personally, I wouldn't tag mine, but I have a lot of friends that go to other states,
Well, I do too, right?
and you can't.
I can promise you, that friends want me to bring it up. That's why I brought it up.
And they're not riding on the roads in these other states. It's, it may be going from one trail to the other 3 or 4 miles down there. It's not that people are wanting to ride them down Highway 22.
Well, we ride them about a half a mile to get to our pasture. So I mean, it happens.
Most people are wanting the tags so they can go ride them out of state. And
Yeah.
What Colorado's the same way.
Yeah. Well, I can promise you, we're gonna keep working on it.
When you go there from Mississippi, you're in trouble.
Yeah. So they won't even let you ride out there unless you have to stay.
No.
Well, you have to pay. You
Yeah.
have to pay for permit.
Yeah, you have to.
Thank you.
They're
Yes.
making money off of us.
Yeah. They just make a new permit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I get it.
Do
Danny,
you have
you
questions concerning this, or do you want to give it to Dan?
I'm gonna let.
I'm sorry,
Oh,
one
I'm sorry.
question.
Speaking of bridges and roads in the lottery,
Let's get the microphone so that everyone can hear.
we passed the lottery. I think most Mississippians did because the money was supposed to be allotted to bridges, roads, and the schools. And why is only $80,000 coming $8 million? But we have more money in the lottery than $8 million.
The rest of the country, yes.
But see, I'm
It's capped at 80 million.
Can you?
It capped at 80 million for roads and bridges, and the rest goes into educational, fund.
does any of it go to general fund?
No, not yet. But in 28, we're gonna change it, well, all of it.
See,
That's fine.
where does all the money go to casinos?
Goes into general fund. All the money from casinos, it goes into general fund. Which is about, how much, y'all know, 150? I don't know what, the general fund is, or general budget. Yeah. Do you know that?
I do now. I don't know.
I'm gonna let Daniel answer the, tier 5 question.
Thank you. The 35 years is the most serious question that's out there. And I will say a couple things that we did in 24. One was that I asked to have put in the bill that all board meetings, committee meetings of PERS be broadcast, live streamed, recorded, and archived. As we were trying to look at different programs, I was shocked to find out that when I wanted to go see why decisions were made in the Hardy debate, there was nothing. So people from Belmont, Mississippi, people from New Albany, you shouldn't have to drive to Jackson to hear what's going on in that meeting. So this December and November, they presented a plan. The actuaries presented a plan to the board. You have a 10-member board. And that plan was a hybrid model, part defined contribution, part defined benefit. And the board, after debate, voted 8-1 to endorse that framework. That's what we put into the tier 5. As we went through the committee process, and I'm looking at the language, there were 2 things that I recall that I added. I went in, talked with the lieutenant governor, I talked to some other people. There was not a term of years in tier 5 as passed the board, meaning there was no 35. It was literally you work whatever period of years you want to work, but you couldn't retire until 62. So I asked that that be put in. I also asked that the 4 years active military credit be put back in, because that was your tier 4. So those are the 2 things that changed. A lot of people that work in law enforcement, a lot of people that work with fire department also maybe have been active military duty. So they get up to 4 years of credit for that. So that's 2 things that we did. I have asked the actuaries to look at something less than 35 as it relates to first responders. I do know if people go to work at 18, 35 years is 53. I'm getting real close to 53. I can't do what I can do at 23. So it is not lost on me on that. The other thing is a lot of times we do have people who transition maybe from the police department or even fire department to some other job within the county. So any state employment that is involved actually works toward that retirement. But that is the most concerning piece of it, does address particularly our first responders and that change between 30 years and 35 years.
What is what's the retirement years for the Mississippi Highway Patrol, do you know?
It's 25, I believe now. It was 20 and it went to 25 a few years ago.
So we're 10 years longer than they are.
That's correct, yes.
So you can see one concern of the emergency first responders.
I do, and I also would say, and I've had this conversation with Commissioner Tyndall, people in Highway Patrol are generally on the road. Now, just like you're talking about maybe a smaller fire department captain maybe as high as you can go. You're literally on the truck, just like they're in the car. So that is part of the reason I think that theirs has been 25. Of course, that was done way before we got there. I think anybody that's here in the legislature, but yes, sir, I am trying to see if there is some, I guess, opportunity to look at something a little different.
There is a repeal on this, correct?
No,
Anybody that's hired before March 1st of next year is still in the same.
no, sir. Yeah, March 1st, 26 is the beginning of Tier 5. Anybody hired, up to the day before that
Right.
is Tier 4. But no, sir, there's not a repeater.
We're concerned about the future of the emergency first responder and with this is what we're concerned about.
Yes,
We
sir.
know we're protected.
Yes,
And we know that's there. But for those of us that have to supply emergency responders for our communities, we got to make sure that everything we're doing, is a positive thing. And it's going to be hard to get these younger kids that are going out there to go to work, into this 35-year buy-in.
And I think and we want to work with obviously the communities that are out there doing the hiring, whether it's in education or whether it's in city and local government. But one of the big things with, and by the way, tomorrow night I will be in Boonville at Waller Hall at 4:00 and do a full-blown PERS presentation. So I'm proud to try to answer questions and also receive feedback. But I do know our system was $26.5 billion unfunded. There's been a lot of prior legislative decisions, and I want to be very clear: no employee in the state of Mississippi has done anything except do their job, and they're owed their benefits. That's been my position since day one. What mistakes maybe have been made were legislative, and yet at the end of the day, if you're $26.5 billion in the hole, it was going to affect bond ratings, ability to borrow money, and the city of New Albany owns a certain amount of that debt. Union County owns a certain amount of that debt. And so we were trying to do something to stabilize the entire system, but it's not lost on me that the 35-year is something we've heard a lot about from first responders.
I guess it's the same thing. I think 35-year has been a major concern. One of the major concerns, probably not, it's not the most, of this system and the way it's going to go is the length of time. And and you said you're 50 something. Well, I'm 60, and so I would just now be getting close, to be able to go. And I'm gonna tell you, if I had to ride a fire truck every day, I couldn't do it. I mean, it's just not there. And so, our organization, of course, we field call after call after call, and I try to walk that fine line, but I don't wear our local legislators out. I let 4,000 other people in the state kind of bear some of the burden with it and all theirs. But the feedback to you from us from our organization is 35 years too long.
I understand, and that is something we will continue to listen to.
It used to be for full-time employees only. Several years ago, the legislature wanted to be a part of the PERS retirement system. Can you serve one term and be qualified to draw state retirement? Is there a number of terms you have to serve to be, because you're not full-time, you're part-time?
Yes, ma'am. I'm serving part of my part-time job, staying in New Albany tonight at 7:00. You get a half a year of service credit for every 4 years of legislative service. So you get 4.5 to 4. So we still have to vest 8 years, just like every other state employee. One of the things nobody really talks about in the PERS legislation package we put together, this legislature voted to end SLRC. So the Special Legislative Retirement Program that was begun in 1989, you'll have to ask people who voted for that. Not only has that been divisive between elected officials and state employees, it's embarrassing that they chose that acronym. So, I mean, I don't know what to say other than I ended it as quick as I could. So FLIRT program will end, and Tier 5 would be all the legislator would be able to do going forward.
Thank you for have our next speaker, which will be Senator Kathy Chism.
Thank y'all. I'm going to try to talk loud enough that it'll pick me up right there so I don't have to hold it. I got a loud mouth anyway. I probably don't even need that thing. First of all, I would like to say I've been in the legislature for 7 years. Anybody in here that wants to go back 7 years and ask me a question, you feel free to. If I can't stand up here and take a question, no matter how many years you go back, I don't need to be here. Appreciate that. And another thing I'd like to address is the lobbyists. And I'm probably fixing to get in trouble for this. We do not need the lobbyists telling us what to do. I'm tired of the lobbyists controlling Mississippi, controlling the legislatures. And that's just my opinion. And I'm sure others have different opinions. I'm quite sure. On House Bill 1, I have a different take on it. I don't like the raise of the gas tax, the fuel tax, because fuel includes diesel, gas, whatever. When you raise that fuel tax, everything in the economy is affected. When they deliver dry goods to Walmart, they're going to go up because your fuel tax went up. When they deliver groceries to the grocery store, they're going to go up because your fuel tax went up. So I have a problem with that. As a Republican, we should not raise the fuel tax. We just shouldn't do it. I'm not for raising any taxes. And if we want to eliminate our state tax, eliminate the state tax. Let that bill stand alone. And if people say, how can you do that? Cut the fat. Do you know how much money is spent in the state of Mississippi that's previously spent, that should not be spent? And I'm going to have a lot of people mad at me, but that's okay. Y'all can let me know. You can reprimand me, bless me out, do whatever you want to. I'm known for it. It's so funny because one of the statewide elected officials, and I probably shouldn't say this, when he calls, I'll say hello, and he says, well, Senator, how many people have you pissed off today? I said, I don't know, but I'm getting pretty good at it. So now I want to touch on the Mississippi hemp. They want to take all of your hemp products out of your convenience stores. I'm all for it. It needs to be out. We don't need it there. But they don't tell you what they want to do in place of it. They want to put your hemp drinks, THC drinks. THC is already illegal in the state of Mississippi if it's not sold in a dispensary. Why are we trying to make something illegal that's already illegal? Why do we want to put these drinks in your convenience stores? Because they have like 0.3% THC. There's no limit. And this bill did die. It got killed. But I don't care if it's dead or alive. Y'all need to know what's going on because it can come back up next year. 99.9%, you can count on it coming back up. When you go to the grocery store, a convenience store, and you want to buy a hemp drink, you can buy a whole truckload of it. They don't care. There's no limit on it. You think people are not going to get high by the time they get home drinking these hemp drinks? I'm totally against it. But I was against the marijuana. If it had been truly medicinal marijuana, I would have been all for it. But it wasn't. My next bill, and I'm not doing a lot of bills tonight. Mine's short and sweet. It don't take many bills for me to make somebody mad. So, illegal immigration. I think everybody in here knows that we had 650 to 700 that was coming into New Albany May last year, May the 18th. Some say, oh, that's not true. In fact, there was a statewide elected official that said, Chism's just telling that. That's not true in Union County. Let me tell you it's true. I have the letterhead from the church that told the time, the date, how many days they were going to be doing this program, how many were coming in, and I started making calls. I called, first of all, my Republican women. My first call was to the governor. And then I started calling Republican women, hey, y'all, I need help. And those ladies jumped in and they helped. And we got that stopped. And it's a long story, and I won't go into all of that. But after it was told that what I was telling was not true, this happened in May. And in August, there was a little 10-year-old boy right here in Ecru raped twice in one day by an illegal immigrant who was deported in 2016 under Trump administration. He came back under Biden administration illegally and raped a little 10-year-old boy twice. Now, don't tell me that we don't have a problem. It was already past the deadline date, and all I could introduce was a resolution, and it was called the 287G. Now, what it is, the Federal Immigration Office. If our state, and I want to give a big shout out to our Attorney General because she did contract with the Federal Office of Immigration. And what the contract says is we want our law enforcement in the state of Mississippi to contract with the Federal Office of Immigration and help them to find the illegals and deport them from the state of Mississippi. I got shot down real quick. And it wasn't even a bill, it was just a resolution. And I got shot down real quick. If you're a true Republican, it's kind of hard to get some things done on the floor. We have 22,000 plus illegals in Mississippi. Mississippi loses more than 100 million in taxpayers' funds yearly providing service to your illegals. Mississippi taxpayers spend 25 million plus to educate illegal immigrants yearly. 50% of the illegals in Mississippi have no health insurance, so they get emergency medical service. 38% have no insurance. That's why they go to your emergency rooms. And here we go with Medicaid expansion. We're going to pay for it. I could stand up here and get real mad thinking about it. We spend around $77 million for illegal immigrant health care. We spend $1.7 million on incarcerated illegals. That's what we're spending to take care of them. And all of this comes from Chad White's office. He did the research on it, or had his guys to do the research. So it's not something I'm just pulling out of the thin blue air. All this money spent on illegals could be spent improving teachers' pay. I'm all for the teachers' pay. I'll tell you right up front, I have a problem with as much money as goes into administration. I have a big problem with it. But I'm all for the teachers. And administration, they get paid megabucks. And then we send our firefighters, we send our highway patrolmen, we send our sheriff's department, we send all of these people out to protect us every day who don't make a third of what most of your administrators make. Now, you tell me that's right. We got a problem in Mississippi. All this money spent on illegals could be spent improving teachers' pay, repairing roads and bridges, or we could just return this money back to the hard-working taxpayers. Thank you. My next bill I want to talk about is the driver's license. It wasn't we, Senator Hill. Now she's a fireball. She's very intelligent when it comes to these bills, and she fights hard. And she wanted this bill to pass, require indication of sex to be consistent with sex of the individual determined at birth. Do you know we have hundreds of people in the state of Mississippi that have changed their sex and they have had it put on their driver's license? Now, if a highway patrolman stops a woman who was a man, and he thinks he's dealing with a woman, and all of a sudden he's dealing with a man who's probably as stout as he is, he should know what he's dealing with when he stops him. And that brings me to, I had another resolution because it was past the bill deadline, and it was, I think, SCR 547, if I remember correctly, which I stand to be corrected on that number. And that bill was to say that there are only two genders, a male and a female. And that bill got shot down real quick, or that resolution got shot down real quick too. The next one I'll talk about for a minute is the Safe Dormitories Act. And this was a really good bill by Senator Hill. All she's asking is to protect our kids in the dormitories. I had an amendment to a bill last year and brought it again this year, and both years it was shot down. All I was asking for, and it was actually an amendment to a bill, it was not a resolution, so it should have gone somewhere. All I asked for, if there's a registered sex offender, he should not be allowed to live in the dormitories or on the properties of your colleges. And it got shot down. And I'm sitting there thinking, what are y'all thinking? These are your kids and grandkids going off to college and high school, in high school going off to college. Why do you not want to protect them?
They're voting Democrat.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you. And in case y'all didn't hear him, he said they're voting Democrat. The next bill is sexual assault kits. To require the right of information to victim and regulate rights of victims to care and exams by the hospital. And all that we're asking here is, and actually this one passed and it got signed by the governor, is that in the hospitals that they're required to have somebody at the hospital that is, that they have the knowledge or the training to use these sex kits in case there's a rape. And I thank our Senate, I thank our representatives. I appreciate them passing this bill, and I appreciate our governor signing this bill. So now I'll take questions. If I can't answer them, I'll get you an answer. Yes, sir.
Senator Chism, I know previously you voted against the expansion.
Yes, sir.
I've asked the two previous representatives that represent Union County this question. Would you, if it came up, I know you voted against it, and you seem quite firm that you were not in favor of Medicaid expansion and they'd have to suspend it to the fire. And in all fair disclosure, you are my stepdaughter, in case anybody here doesn't know that already. But if that bill came up again, would you oppose it regardless of whether they went to maybe a Republican administration did or a Democratic administration? Would you still vote against that same bill?
I would absolutely vote against it. I don't care if the lobbyists are standing in front of my desk.
Thank you.
I would vote against it. Anybody else?
Yeah, I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
So you spoke briefly about the 9 cents a gallon on the tax, and you were opposed to that. I've been looking into property tax stuff here, and in 2023, Union County experienced across the board, on average, a 20% increase on their assessed values, which is massive. And Board of Supervisors is supposed to stop that at 10%, and they didn't. And I'd like to know, is there anything that can be done to just make that so the Board of Supervisors steps in sooner so we don't see a huge increase in property tax like that in the future?
Thank you. That's a good question. Actually, that's local and private. It's going to be the supervisors. The legislatures have no control over it. But I will say this, it needs to be looked into, because I too have looked at some of the tax records, and some of us pay high taxes, some of us don't pay near as high, and it's really unfair at the way the taxes are accredited to us. So probably to answer your question, and I stand corrected, I would probably put my name on the agenda, and this lady right here can do that for you. And I would be at a supervisor's meeting, and I would have any information that I've come up with and I would present it to them and explain what needs to happen. The more people you have with you, and this is really going to make some of them mad. The more people you have standing behind you to let them know we want this straightened out, the better chance you have of getting something done. Anybody else? Thank y'all. I appreciate you.
Whaley?
That's right. Hello, everyone. My name is Neil Whaley, but I will answer to Neil Wheeler or Nail Wheeler or anything else that you say. I have answered to a lot worse, so I promise you that. First off, thank you all for having me. It's an honor to be here. Before I get too far down the rabbit hole, the question you just asked, Senator Chism, will you please ask me that same question where I can get into that a little bit more, please, about the taxing, about the assessments?
So we can ask it one more time.
Sure. So in 2023, Union County experienced a minimum, well, an average of 20% increase in assessed values. Some of them are slightly lower, some were higher, but it averaged 20% the entire county. And that was our assessed values on our properties, which meant a fairly large increase in just 1 year. And then the Board of Supervisors manual recommends a maximum of 10%, and they just blew right past that, doubled it. So it's that was a very large increase for one year. And then that was followed up, I believe, with a 5 mil increase in 2024. And I don't know where the money's going. And that's a lot of money when you start looking.
So I'm going to begin to speak a little bit, and then I'm going to work my way into that if I don't knock this flag over first. As I said, my name is Neil Whaley, and I'm one of the lucky ones that gets to represent you all, get to work with this amazing group of people that have stood up here before us. This year was the start of a new year for me. This was my 8th year in the legislature. It seemed like yesterday that I was just elected, but now we're into year 8. This is my 8th session to begin with, and I was given a new task this year. I've been the chairman of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks for the last few years, and I'll tell you, that's not a very fun committee to serve on, especially not one to chair. But I was lucky enough to be appointed as chairman of the Agriculture Committee, and that's just like giving a 5-year-old a school schedule of recess all day. Might not be very smart, but I did get the luckiest job in the building, and that's one I'm tickled to death with. And I think about some of the things that have gone on in the agricultural world and how that has an impact on what you just asked. So we're going to get to that as I work my way down the list. But once I got that committee appointment, it kind of changed the direction of how I was going to spend that legislative session and what I needed to do. Immediately upon getting that appointment, it actually happened on a Sunday. The appointments were released on a Sunday. My phone started blowing up, and I had a meeting scheduled with the Ag Commissioner the very next day, and I was very excited about that. The Ag Commissioner and I, we work pretty good together. We'll butt heads every once in a while, but usually something good comes out of that when we do. And we kind of laid out the groundwork working with the chairman of the House, Mr. Pygott, who I work very well with as well. We wanted to send a session of getting some good common sense legislation pushed through that would impact the ag world, but would also impact the consumer, which is each and every one of you. A few of those bills that we dealt with, we wanted to deal with consumer safety. That was a big issue for us. So meat labeling, that was one of the first things that we wanted to deal with. When you go to purchase a meat product, we wanted you to know that you were in fact purchasing beef, or you were purchasing pork, or if you were purchasing poultry. And if you were wanting to buy a bug protein, you knew you were buying bug protein and you were not tricked throughout the process. U.S. farm raised catfish, not Vietnamese. We had a lot of different things that we wanted to go through on that. So that meat labeling bill was one very, very important to us and important to you as a consumer. We also went a step further in another bill, and we like to do in the Ag Committee, one of my pet peeves are these Christmas tree bills where you have a lot of different issues in one, so I like to separate my bills. I don't mind going to the well multiple times. the cultivated food product bill, or the cell cultured meats. We had an act to prohibit that this year, and I'll tell you a little bit about what that is. That's where they take a cell culture from a animal protein, and you grow it in a lab. It's lab grown meat. Cloning, you can call it a lot of different things, but there are a lot of health concerns with risk available to that. We had seen the research, we had seen studies, we were worried about it, so we had a bill this year to prohibit that in the state of Mississippi. We'll have a chance to look at it in the future, but I don't see how it can be beneficial to the state, and I don't see how it can be beneficial to consumers. So that was a very important one to us as well. You want to look at our row crop farmers. That was a big deal for me. Plant biostimulants. That's something that allows the plant to take up nutrients or be able to use those nutrients. Very important to farmers nowadays as your farming is becoming more scientific. Working with the ag commissioner, we realized that a lot of the biostimulants that we need for the crops were not on the list to actually be approved in the state. So we worked on that to update that list. So we had a biostimulant bill dealing with that, just giving the ag commissioner a greater authority to be able to look at those to where they can where they do not have to come to the legislature and ask for permission every single time to put something that is beneficial to a farmer. Eliminating some of that red tape, some of that steps, which will save the farmers money, save the state money. That was a big one for us as well. Also, a big thing in agriculture today, all across this state, and really in this area as well, agritourism is a big deal. As you see more and more people who are not connected to the farm, these agritourism farms, whether it's, right down the road here in Pontotoc County, you've got the pumpkin patch and the corn maze and a lot of different things that Mr. Wise does there. The agritourism is a very, very important part of the market, teaching people where their food comes from, how it's made, a lot of these different things. Well, we didn't realize how regulated these agritourism farms were, so we had an act to deregulate them a lot with their signage. Just a small common sense thing that's not very sexy, but it's very, very important to them as it saves them money and allows them to open more doors for their business to be better and attract more people. So that was important to us as well. Another one, working with our farmers, the farmers, when they purchase things, there are things that are at a lesser tax rate, but it's very confusing of what is and what is not. And there wasn't a great uniformity between businesses. So we instructed the Department of Revenue to create a list. That way we would know what is available and what is not, so that we can address that going forward. Also, looking at things, alternative markets for our crops, working with MDA to develop new markets to enhance ag commerce in the state, as this is the largest industry in the state of Mississippi, and I think it's one of the very most important. We held a series of hearings. We are going to hold a series of hearings, and we've held one to begin with, and we're going to hold another one here shortly. And one of the deals that we're going to deal with are seed cost disparities. And I didn't realize this until I really started researching, but seed costs from state to state vary. You can go to Tennessee and buy cotton seed a lot cheaper than you can in Mississippi. I don't know why, and I don't like there is a reason why. So we're going to dig into that and see if we can figure out these seed cost disparities to try to help put our farmers in a better position, and make sure that we don't have anything else that's holding our farmers back. Another deal that some of you may have heard about, geoengineering or chemtrail. I don't know if any of you, I see some heads nodding here. We had a bill this year dealing with that, not in my committee, it was in the Environmental Protection Committee. We didn't get that one through, but we're going to keep working on that one. I think it's very, very important. We need to look at that a little bit more. So we're going to go back to land taxes, and that's one that not only affects agriculturists, but it affects everyday people. And I remember back in, it was either 2015 or 2016, before I was in the legislature, there was a bill dealing with that 10% that you were talking about, to where it actually says that they cannot increase by more than 4% a year. So that 10%, you're saying they went past that 10%, really not supposed to go past 4%, up or down. So we'll need to look into that a little bit as well. The conservative mindset on tax is that you do not tax someone who's trying to better themselves. Income, property. I think those are very unfair taxes. You're taxing someone for doing better, for trying harder, for striving to do better. I'm a fan of consumption taxes. If I have to have a tax, I don't really like any of them, but I'd rather pay a consumption any day as opposed to a what I would call a punishment tax. So we'll look into that, and I'll get with you here afterwards. I'll get a number to see if I can't track down some of that information. I know I have it somewhere in my office in Jackson. I know Miss Nancy, she stated this is a part-time job. This is the hardest part-time job I've ever had. Been at the Capitol more than I've been home this year. So I'll be back at the Capitol probably tomorrow. And we all meet in the road pretty regular. Me and this one, we talk. We'll see each other and we'll flash the lights. I'll see her coming home about the time I'm going down. I'll talk to that one all the way home. He'll stay up walking the dog, and he'll get about 2 or 3 miles of walking in on my trip home. So, see, I'm trying to make him healthy and make Representative Creekmore feel better about himself. We're going to keep doing better, and I appreciate the opportunity. With the Tier 5, working with first responders has been something that's been very, very important to me. Once I was first elected representing any county, I worked pretty hard to get some money to some of the volunteer fire departments, and I'm looking to do that further. With the Tier 5, the only thing that I have ever heard from anyone is don't do anything to jeopardize what I have already, meaning do not mess with the retirees, do not mess with the current employees, and let me know. Well, I've heard nothing negative on this. The board had approved this. That was important to me because the prior year when the House of Representatives had a concept idea of doing away with that board, making it appointed, everybody said, no, we trust our board. The board said do this. I took their advice as we didn't do anything to deal with the contractual promise made to anyone. I'd be more than willing to talk to you in the future, and I'll work with Senator Sparks to see if we can't try to find some avenues to make this better going forward. But I do appreciate the opportunity to serve, and I would be glad to take any questions. No, I won't vote for it.
I'm sure. If you don't like wasting it, and it doesn't matter whether it's a Republican or a Democratic administration, regardless of what they do, you're opposed to the election. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's math. That might excuse me. I said math. I was going to give you a roadmap on this. You know, I am not one that really cares too much about whether a governor or a president likes something or dislikes it. I'm pretty hard-headed myself. I do want to work well with the president, the governor, and everyone else in Jackson because that is how we get things done. You have to be able to work with each other. But that doesn't mean you have to do what everybody says and what everybody else does. I've been opposed to Medicaid expansion since I came to Jackson. Before I was in Jackson, I don't personally feel that the state can afford it. And the reason why I say that, there are so many unnamed costs associated with it. You don't know what I'm agreeing to in the future, and that's a problem for me. But no, sir, I cannot support Medicaid expansion. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. I want to.
Okay, speaking of land and property taxes, who pay taxes for the property to the tax assessors? Right, so one, you can do that. I know everybody here probably does know that, but I'd like to know why I'm gonna pay property taxes because you never own anything. Because if you don't pay no land taxes or property taxes, they're going to take your property away, and you're going to need the newspaper as a legal ad. So could you explain that?
So the question is, why do you pay property taxes? The reason why you pay them, somebody set it up a long time ago, is that was the way that it worked. I remember my grandfather telling stories about the Depression, where there was a woman who worked as a school teacher, And the county couldn't afford to pay her for teaching school, so they gave her a surety bond. And she went to pay her land taxes with the surety bonds that was given to her by the county, and they wouldn't accept them because they were no good. She lost her land in the Depression. I don't like paying taxes, and that's what I was talking about a minute ago. I do not like taxes that punish you for doing better. If you own land, you're trying to do better. If you're working more hours, you're trying to do better. If you're buying a nice vehicle, you're trying to do better. It's not my form of taxation. I don't like it, but that is the means that the counties and the cities receive their money. So if that was to be changed, and that's not something that we set, the legislature does not set that. That is a local issue. If the legislature was going to look at addressing that issue, and there may be a few legislators that are looking into that issue now, there would have to be offsets to accompany that, because you have to find ways to make the county whole. And we're looking at some alternatives into that.
Well, especially if your home age is 65, you shouldn't have to pay taxes on item.
I can agree with that.
It's been done on the way.
I can agree with that. And, tax policy is one that is very difficult and very hard. I heard a very wise senator one day, he walked up to the finance and the appropriations chairman, and he said, appropriations, you mess up for a year. And he looked at the finance chairman and he said, you mess up for 20 years. And that's kind of the truth. And that's why people in Jackson are very, very cautious with the taxing policy. I'm not the finance chairman, and I'm kind of glad. Not really my forte. I'm not a big numbers guy. You might need an accountant to work on that, but I'm not that guy. Yes, sir.
Where did we end up with? I know everybody probably saw the commercials about giving Bayer and all them, not, we're trying to get it where Bayer, the chemical companies, didn't have any liability for anything, and then I stopped hearing about it.
Okay. So the question is about pesticide liability. That's the question. That's what everyone heard. Wish people would go back and really look at the legislation and look at what the intent was. The word on the street was that we were giving the chemical companies immunity for damages, and that did not have been any further from the truth. So let me walk you back to the beginning of this. When a chemical comes onto the market, it goes through rigorous testing of years for EPA and FDA. It is either saying, yes, you can use it, or no, you cannot. If you can use it, the EPA tells you, and I'm going to pretend that you're the chemical man, okay? You're making the chemical, and I'm the EPA. I tell you what you can put on your label. Now, if you want to say, well, it could do this, no. You can put this on your label. The EPA tells the chemical companies what they can put on their label. If they want to put a warning sign on there, they can't do it. They're prohibited. The bill was about failure to warn, and it was giving immunity to companies who were prohibited from failure to warn. The EPA and the federal government says, no, you cannot put this on here. But in the state courts, the attorneys could sue. It was a lawyer bill, is what it was. It was a tort reform bill to give the chemical companies an avenue to stay out of court over something that they had no control over. If there was damages where a chemical did hurt you, you still had cause. Still had all cause. And I see it as being very common sense of just allowing them to put a warning label on there. And when I go to Washington next month, which will be in 2 days, but in the month of May, I will be going to Washington, and I will be meeting with people from USDA and FCA and NRCS. I'm trying to figure out a way to get into talking to someone with EPA, and this is an issue that I want to bring up because I see it being so common sense and easy. Just tell me, as a chemical company, that I can put on there, this chemical could kill you, this chemical could cause cancer. And that solves every problem you've got.
Yeah, I don't know that they've ever proved that Roundup has caused cancer in anybody. if anybody ought to have cancer from it, I should. Well, I spray 2,000 gallons of it a year and get it all over me every day. You let a gardener go out there with a quart bottle he bought from Walmart and they award him $50 million because he got cancer. That's bull.
And you know as well as I do that chemical that they're getting in Walmart and Lowe's is a different chemical than what you and I are getting. We're getting watered down. Theirs is watered down. I'll tell you, last year, you want to talk about something. Had a bad episode of army worms in Hayfield, and I was tore up about it. I needed to spray. So I called my chemical guy and said, "Hey, I need some tombstone." He said, "I don't have it." He said, "Okay, I need some sniper." He said, "I don't have it." I said, "What do you got?" He told me something. I can't even say the name of it. He said, "Lesser rate, a lot better." I said, "Okay." So I went spraying that stuff. I was wearing a short sleeve shirt. It's on the open cab tractor. Knees tore out of my pants. Sprayed that tank out real quick. Just a little bit. I got the burn and I said, "Hey, come on, I got sunburn." I didn't know I had chemical burn and it tore me up. But I'm not going to sue the chemical company. That's my fault. It's not theirs. And that's kind of where this whole bill goes. We're going to do we're going to work on our messaging, and I'm going to work on the wording of that bill to make it a lot clearer that we're not giving chemical companies immunity from damages. We're just trying to keep them from being sued every time they turn around. And which that costs you money as that farmer, because every time that they're tied up in court, your input costs go up. I know you don't have a problem with your input costs, right? I know they're all real cheap right now. That's a joke, folks. The input costs are absolutely unbearable for these guys. So y'all say for every farmers. They need. Any other questions? Thank you all.
I'm going to open it up to anyone who has a question in general. We're starting this part.
All right. I feel like I would be doing the fire service an injustice if I didn't take this time to speak on where we're at, especially since I asked everybody throughout the state every time they have a chance to talk to their legislature folks. And so I want to take just a minute. The Tier 5, I hope I didn't put you on the spot. When you brought it up, I thought, well, here we go. So it's time to mention it. As far as the way we addressed it, we in the state of Mississippi, the fire service, and what we do, I represent both paid and volunteer. And whether folks know it or not, when you get an insurance policy for your home, you pay a tax on it, and that tax goes to the state. And last year it produced $419 million. And the fire service actually gets it back in a rebate, but we get a very, very small amount. So when I say small amount, like $20 million of it. So what we did was we tried to decide what was more important at the time for the overall fire service. And we thought we need to figure out a way to get more money back to our local communities. To put it in perspective, in 2005, New Albany Fire Department the city of New Albany bought a ladder truck for $570,000. That truck lasts for 25 years. We're due to replace that truck in 2030, and the cost of that truck is going to be about $1.7 million now. And so it's such a burden on the cities and the counties to purchase these new trucks and all the equipment. So we're trying to find ways to get more money. So what we did was we said, we've got to figure out a way to get more of this rebate money back. And Senator Robinson from the south part of the state authored the bill, Senate Bill 2802. And it went through the Senate, went to the House, had some rewrites, went back to the Senate, had some other things done to it, but they did pass it. So Senate Bill 2802 did pass unanimously, both House and Senate. It's going to bring more money back into the local area, to your county and cities both. Is it enough? Absolutely not. Is it a start? Yes, it is. We live to fight another day. So, they know what we're coming back next year. We don't have a lobbyist. We had a lobbyist at one time. We did away with it. I put together a legislative committee, and that legislative committee deals with that, and they go to the Capitol and they work one-on-one with folks down there. We don't spend the money on a lobbyist. We do it ourselves. I'll commend our local legislature. Representative Creekmore, I can text him, call him, and I get a thumbs up or a call right back. I can go by his office. Senator Whaley, correct me if I'm wrong, if I left the department out, but you secured funding for Ingomar Fire Department, West Union Fire Department, Pinedale Fire Department, and was Myrtle in there?
No, sir.
Okay.
So got good.
Okay, he secured funding for the volunteer fire departments. And what, like,
we did.
Okay.
We did.
Okay, and so Senator Chism has got, she's working on $24,000 for North Haven Fire Department to put in storm shelters. So we're just waiting to see if we can get some money. And so it's all just kind of up in the air. It doesn't happen overnight. We work on this stuff for years and years and years to get where we are. But I do have an open line of communication with them, and I don't have a complaint with any of them as far as when I call and talk to them about something. But I just want everybody to understand that it costs a lot for your volunteer fire departments to even operate, let alone the municipalities. But the volunteer fire departments, so we're trying to get money every time we go down there. We don't want them to think, oh my gosh, here they come again to complain or need money. And so we try to spread it out. But they are the ones we go to. And the group that we have here, I do have an open line of communication with, and I can't complain or say a negative thing about any one of them. So with that being said, we appreciate everything you guys do. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Are we happy with Tier 5? Absolutely not. But we have an opportunity to talk to them, and like I said, we live to fight another day. But I just want you to understand that the money that you guys pay on tax does not necessarily make its way back to where it needs to go. But we're working on that. And we got some this year. It just needs the governor's signature on it when they go back into session. And we'll get more money for our fire departments. And we're not going to stop. We're going to continue to do so. Trent Kelly's office, Congressman Kelly, is absolutely wonderful for us in our area. Mr. Jim will tell you, all we got to do is call them and they'll help any way we can. When we go to Washington every year, the first thing they say is, you need to go back to your state and ask also. And we do. And when we go to the state, they say, you need to go federal and ask for it. The assistance to firefighter grants is a federal program. So we have to go to Congressman Kelly and also the senators for that. And we do every year. And we're a long way from where we need to be, but we're a lot closer than we were 20 years ago. So I do commend them for that, and I appreciate you guys.
Okay, one other thing before we get ready to close, I would like to recognize some of our officials here. We have Donna Treadway, our circuit clerk, who's, you can stand other way if you like. And we also have our upcoming mayor, Jeff Olson. He's newly elected. He'll be starting in July, I believe, or something like that. And then we have Park Smith, one of our aldermen. So I appreciate you being here. Some of you may want to meet with them afterwards, or they may decide to run from you. I don't know. But I do appreciate you, and I want to recognize y'all for being here. Anyone else have anything to say? Please buy. Please buy. Please buy. And if I have mentioned this already, please buy. Okay, we have lots of Trump material. We'd love for you to be a part of that, sharing that. Any questions from anyone? Anyone else? Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting? Thank you, Ms. Nancy. A second? Thank you. Okay, thank you. We have 2 seconds, so thank you. The meeting's adjourned. Thanks, y'all, for coming.